that we can't meet with. The base of the Baltic Fleet would entreat the elite with demands that we can't meet without a mutiny. And their ships are lacking heat, bread to eat in the street. They've got factions who'd compete with party unity.
Strikers here in Petrograd, getting mad, worst we've had. Say the leadership's gone bad, too centralized. Said we shoved it down their throats.
Here's a note that they wrote. They want secret ballot votes, free enterprise.
Freedom of speech and the press, nothing less.
Read the rest.
Say the workers feel oppressed, want to lead locally.
You know with freedom of speech, they'll impeach, overreach. There's a lesson we should teach these bastards vocally.
Zinoviev can't tell him shit, won't help a bit.
To hell with it.
Arrested the delegates we sent to the city. We'll arrest them in return, we'll stand firm, make them learn. Cut short the Soviets' term with our own committee.
What a bunch of pasty teens wanna be self-governing, seize their own productive means but anonymously. If this were any other place, I'd show grace and give them space. You can't run a naval base autonomously.
They say we're crypto-bourgeois whites trying to ignite mainline fights. As for terms like workers' rights, they won't even discuss.
Tell them if they wanna live, cut short this offensive. Something's gonna have to give, it's not gonna be us.
Bolshevik numbers are loaded, before we go. Obliterating all the Soviet bodies on the ice.
Rebels could have struck before if they poured on our shore. They might have resisted more and they start to rise.
50,000 to 15 bombs clean the smoke screen. Thousands of supply unseen and they've got gas. Now the beg we not attack, should instead have it back. Now that the next is back, take them en masse.
Preach to get in bullets rain, bullets strain, rain, rain. Most of the overstay we did what must be done. We're going to get out ahead, bodies dead, we are fled. Over to residents and that's all fine, help on. Sing it in your own language.
What? No, sing it in Russian. What the hell? It's your own language. What the hell, man? Sing it in Russian.
Your
Strain, crying pain, our loss would have been upward stained, and our comrades on board were to get ahead. Both sides fled, pierced with lead. Over 10,000 troops dead, and thus the side that won.
I need to unmute. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to an LP Alliance This Day in Liberty History live stream. We are LP Alliance, an intercaucus coalition rebuilding the liberty. You see how embarrassed I get when I actually play my music in front of people. An intercaucus coalition rebuilding the Libertarian Party and revolutionizing the liberty movement. You never heard the Internationale, Larry? That is my arrangement of the Internationale. That is all me singing with no effects. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to agitpopinternational.substack.com. But I am not joined by Kyle Davis. He's just here. My name is Amanda Griffiths. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it is under my face. So there is that. Guys, it's Wednesday, March 18th, and we are here to do a stream on the Kronstadt uprising. Last year, same time, we did a double whammy. We did the Paris Commune, which of course was on the same day as the Kronstadt uprising, but 50 years prior. And we also did the Kronstadt uprising. So if you want to watch that and learn more about the Paris Commune, please do. That is on YouTube. And you will also get to see just how much knowing Kyle has aged me. If you just did, that was a year ago.
I looked very different last year.
Kyle wasn't on that stream last year. And ever since Kyle has been on streams, I have just gotten progressively more haggard. There are more songs, Larry. There's an entire album. It's Agitpop in Offensive Marxism, a parody album about the Russian Revolution. I am at
Which
this
I
point,
linked for him.
Oh, wonderful. I'm at this point compelled to note that, yes, all songs, all lyrics are entirely written by me. All songs are entirely recorded by me. The backing tracks, however, are not. Any vocals come directly from me. The backing tracks are instrumentals that come from other people, and I try to credit them appropriately. But we are going to talk about Kronstadt. So for those who don't know, the Kronstadt uprising was a counter-Bolshevik uprising that took place in 1921 off the coast of Petrograd, and was a mainly anarchic libertarian style uprising. And we're going to be getting into the history of that. Kyle is here to provide, what are you here to do exactly?
I'm cute.
You learned some stuff about Kronstadt, didn't you? You were assigned to do that? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Larry. So, yes.
Basically, some Russians were near boats, and some other Russians were mad because they wanted those boats for themselves.
That's not exactly what happened.
I'm pretty sure.
In order to tell this story appropriately, we will need to do a little bit of a background on the Paris Commune. Again, as I said, the Paris Commune preceded the Kronstadt uprising by 50 years. Now, a note that you will hear anytime somebody talks about the Paris Commune is that commune in French does not mean place where communists hang out. Commune just means town. So if you think of it, it's really the Paris Town Council. There were many in the Paris Commune who would have identified as communists, but primarily were anarchists and libertarians. Also, not all of them were Marxists. In fact, I would argue that few of them were. Marx had a few comments on the Paris Commune, not all of them positive. The Paris Commune was established when the nobility fled Paris, and the landowners and the factory owners fled Paris, in order, in part, to run away from the invading Prussian army.
Get guillotined.
Not guillotined, but in order to not get killed by the Prussians. As a result, the working class in Paris were left to fend for themselves, and they set up an autonomous little town council and fended for themselves pretty well for a little while. They had some military training. Again, they didn't do classic Marxist communist stuff in many cases. Yes, they did give the means of production to the actual workers, which after the Bolshevik Revolution did not happen. We'll get to that later. They did have unions running the factories, actual worker-led unions running the factories. They also continued to have private banks. They had private industry, private profit. So there were a number of reforms that they instituted that were very classically libertarian, classically anarchist. Ultimately, the Paris Commune did fail. And when Marx has his comments on the Paris Commune, he says one of the reasons they failed was because they weren't really communist enough, and also they were too peaceful. Unfortunately, we will see the too peaceful element play out here in the case of Kronstadt as well. But the important thing about the Paris Commune for this story is the fact that it became this revolutionary legend, this core revolutionary symbol for all of the Russian revolutionaries. The Bolsheviks, who then named themselves the Communist Party, they claimed the mantle of the communists, claimed to be the bearers forth of the Paris Commune. So there's this propagandistic turf war around the Paris Commune that we need to consider. The Bolsheviks and the anarchists in Russia were fighting for a claim to, again, this core symbol, one of the major pieces of historical legitimacy that the Bolsheviks used to credential themselves in their ownership of the Russian Revolution and of the revolution's legacy. There were holidays to commemorate the first day of the Paris Commune. Again, that's March 18th. So this is a big deal. Now, as we go on through this episode, I'm going to continue to call the Bolsheviks the Bolsheviks. They would have called themselves, and pretty soon into it, the anarchists were calling them the communists. However, there were plenty of communists. The majority of communists in Russia were not Bolsheviks. They would not have been part of the party. They would not have necessarily agreed with Marxist-Leninism. So to go forward, when we're talking about communists, we're talking about this collective of people who identified as communists, although there are some really core differences between the anarcho-communists of Kronstadt and the Bolsheviks who tried to claim that label of communism.
And as a throw to the Libertarian Party, pay attention to the fact that the Bolsheviks were never the majority through this entire thing. They always call themselves Bolshevik.
Yes, Bolshevik means majoritarian. Yeah, majoritarian. That is true.
So
and
just keep that in mind and consider how this story might be important to the Libertarian Party.
There are some parallels, yes. So we're here in 1921, and this is coming out putatively of the Russian Civil War. Although, to be frank, Russia was still, or the SFSR was still incredibly fragmented. Forget about the Titan USSR image of Russia that has prevailed since then. This was a very fractured, very fragmented country. Even when we talk about the Red Army was full of mutinies, full of defections all the time. This is a very volatile state for the Bolsheviks and for the SFSR proper to be finding themselves in. So
I'd also shoot Leon Trotsky, so can't blame him.
There's famine, there's war communism, which basically was the very, very Spartan and very restrictive and incredibly coercive set of economic policies that prevailed in the wake of the Russian Civil War, which I think is a terrible... It's a terrible branding error, honestly, because if you know it's going to suck, and Lenin did know war communism was not going to be helpful, or it was not going to be pleasant, it was going to be very painful. If you know it's going to suck, just call it war capitalism. Like, that's definitely going to turn the people against it, because we have to be capitalists during the war, and then we can get to the fun communism part where you can actually have cows. But during the...
we can have cows.
We can have your cows. During the Russian Civil War, the Kronstadt anarchists
played a key role in defeating the White Army. And Kronstadt is a part military base, naval base, but it's also like a small city, large town on this island called Kotlin Island off the coast of Petrograd. I'm going to give some details here that are important for being able to map this out in your head and to realize some important elements here. During the winter, Kronstadt is tied to the mainland via a sheet of ice. It's also cut off from the west by icy waters. When that ice thaws, Kronstadt is much more distant from the mainland, much less accessible. You can only get there by boats, which move very slowly, not like a quick army. And they also have access to Western waters where they can get imports, guns, money, that kind of thing. Historically, the Kronstadt anarchists had been very friendly with the Bolsheviks. There was a large big tent coalition. And Kronstadt, the anarchists there, were used to rebelling against the state. That's the thing. This happens in northern Russia, what is today St. Petersburg, Petrograd, and Kronstadt. These are places that have this history of fighting against state authority. When it was the czars, there were all of these uprisings against the czarist generals. Kronstadt was very, very class stratified. There were the working class sailors and then the White Army admirals. They were always getting into literal fisticuffs, sometimes very dangerous ones. So Kronstadt had been allies of the Bolsheviks for a really long time. They were friendly with them. They had a good history. The sailors were largely credited with helping overthrow the Tsar. And Russia, again, at this time finds itself very disunited. Go back about a year from 1921. And
So 1920, for those having difficulty with math.
The party is also experiencing some factional tension. And it's important that we set the stage here for why all of this came so quickly to a head, why this escalated so quickly, because it did. Up until really just before the siege, there was no expectation that it was going to become so bloody and so awful. It was overnight, truly. But year prior, there was some schism within the party from a group called the Workers' Opposition. The Workers' Opposition was agitating for more rights for the workers. They wanted the unions to operate independent of the party. They wanted things to be decentralized. The idea had been initially was that, so Soviet comes from the Russian verb sovetovati, which means to counsel or to advise. Yes, I do speak Russian. I just have a terrible Russian accent. So you will hear that if you actually do speak Russian. You'll be like, why is she mixing up her O's? But Soviets are workers' councils. The idea is that you would have this federalist type of system where there would be the central command, yes, but individual locales were going to be governed by autonomous, mainly workers' councils who interfaced with the unions. So the question became, are the councils and the unions going to be independently elected? Are they going to be appointed by the party? Now, the prevailing logic for the Bolsheviks was that, yeah, maybe we can get to self-governing councils in a bit, guys, but we just came out of the Civil War and everyone kind of hates us. I have no idea why. Maybe it's the war communism. So right now we need a tight-knit central command, and we're gonna appoint the heads of the unions. We're going to have this, the Soviets will need to be members of the party. They won't be entirely elected. We won't have the whole secret ballots thing, but eventually we'll get there. Marxism just has to happen in phases. What ends up happening is that the workers' councils just act as a rubber stamp for the central commands. The unions weren't picked by the workers. They did run the factories, but the problem with that was that the Bolsheviks got to appoint the heads of the factories, and the only people who could be the heads of the unions were the heads of the factories, because again, the unions have to run the factories. The only people who knew how to run a factory were the people who had previously owned the factories. So, I shit you not, the heads of the unions were the previous factory owners. So not much changed.
This kind of goes, sorry.
No, go on.
This kind of goes back to a consistent problem with centralization and why we so often come out against it and everything, both as libertarians and anarchists. When there is a central control in a hierarchy, there's no reason for all the people underneath them to do anything. They can, at the end of the day, consistently do kickbacks, ignore things, and let the shit roll up to the top of the hill, where they can make those decisions, and then they just get to blame everyone underneath. This is the, like, as if you're a corporate drone in the United States, that's what middle management is. Middle management is that horrible, horrible centralization of the Soviets that's being talked about here, right? So when you get some of the discussion around the USSR being state capitalist, think about these similarities, right? A lot of this structure ends up being the same as the capitalism that we see. But
well, I was going to say that was supposedly a feature, not a bug. So if anyone's read Marxist theory, you know, the idea of needing to have the institutions of the capitalist in order to move past capitalism, right? You have to take those institutions. And that idea was very much at play. I have long critiqued that idea on the basis of materialism, that, you know, modes condition motives. So you're telling me that you can have your actions be identical to your enemies and not end up having the same desires as your enemies because you start out somehow metaphysically with the correct intentions, which infuse your actions with good things. It's not very materialist. And yet this is
it is very Trotskyist.
It is very Trotskyist, yes. And it's very Marxist-Leninist. So yes, there's a workers' opposition-based schism in the party with how we're going to deal with the unions. Are they going to be separate from the party? Are they going to be instruments of the party? This causes tension for about a year. And again, Russia's not in a good spot right now. Then we start to have strikes in Petrograd. Petrograd, again, this is a very industrialized place, very, very... that's a hotbed of revolutionary activity, always has been. And so the people in Petrograd have always had tension with their leadership. Once the Bolsheviks come into power, that doesn't go away. They just decide to go on strikes against the unions because the unions are their bosses, but the unions are also comprised of their old bosses and they don't get to pick the heads of their unions. So routinely, you have the Petrograd Soviet, other members of the army, the Cheka, which are the secret police, they're coming to heads and they have to come and put these strikes down. This is the environment in which the Kronstadt uprising festers. The sailors at Kronstadt have always had a close connection with the Petrograd workers in the mainland. They are aware of what's going on. And again, they're friendly with the Bolsheviks too. So they want to help make this, they want to help work this out. They actually want to find solutions. In February of 1921, there's an article that appears in a French newspaper that talks about how there's this uprising at Kronstadt. It was quickly quelled and put down. That didn't happen. What we can imagine, however, is that in the game of international press telephone, word got out about one of these strikes in Petrograd, which is right next door to Kronstadt. And then it turns into there's an uprising at Kronstadt, near Kronstadt, that was put down and everything's fine. The story in the French press, however, was going to be the fodder and became the fodder the Bolsheviks used to argue the Kronstadt anarchists, after things really kicked off, were working with the White Army and these French, these old French czarists to bring the czarists back into power. After the revolution, a lot of czarists fled to other countries in Europe. France was one of them. So the story that the Bolsheviks picked up and ran with was that the reason there was some prior awareness of a terrible rebellion that was going to happen in Kronstadt that got published in the French paper was because they're planning this with the Tsarists. The anarchists are in league with the Tsarists to reinstate Tsardom. Made more sense than anything else these geniuses could think of. And so I just want to set the stage with that, which was weird.
I do want to make
go on.
one quick point here, because I'm not convinced everyone in the audience knows this, because I didn't know it, and so maybe I'm just stupid, but we'll find out. Petrograd and St. Petersburg are the same city.
Yes, I did mention that once.
And
but
Leningrad is
also,
the same
yes,
city.
Yes.
Petrograd is St. Petersburg in Russian, and it was St. Petersburg, like English
Petersburg.
St.
It's
Petersburg.
not St. Petersburg.
Yes, sorry.
They took out the Saint. Yeah.
Right. And then, as part of this revolution, they named it Petrograd, and then because Stalin was a big fan of Lenin, he went over to Leningrad. And then when the Russian Federation came back, it's now again St. Petersburg.
Yep.
So when she's talking Petrograd, in your head, St. Petersburg.
Yeah, it's up north, and again, it's there's an island very close by, and that island is Kotlin Island, which has that base/small city called Kronstadt. Again, this article comes out. The article becomes the fodder, but at the time, the people of Kronstadt are trying to figure out how to actually realize the ideals of the revolution, because they know that things are difficult. They know that there's tension between the Bolsheviks and the workers in Petrograd, and the workers really all around the country at this point, including especially the peasants. So they come up with what's called the Petrograd Resolution. They name a few things, well, more than a few things, that they think need to happen.
Dog?
What?
Okay.
They come up with a list of things that need to happen in order for the tensions between the working class and the Bolshevik leadership to resolve. They settle on things like freedom of speech, freedom of the press, anonymous ballots, free Soviets. Again, free Soviets becomes this rallying cry for Kronstadt. Free Soviets means workers' councils that are elected by the people and are not appointed by or necessarily loyal to the party. They're about people. They also, and this is important, want the freedom to sell their own wares. That is, they want the freedom to be able to make a profit from the things that they sell. The idea here is that communism, or rather capitalism, back then isn't about making private profit or holding on to money. The idea is that capitalism is when you are taking someone else's profit from their labor. Capitalism is when you're relying on somebody else to make your money for you. Many communists did not have a problem, and the anarchists were this way, did not have a problem with you selling your own things, being an independent creator, being self-employed in our language today, and keeping the money from what you sell. Like if you're a farmer, you should be able to grow your own crops and sell those and keep the profit. If you are, again, if you make socks, you should be able to make the socks yourself, sell the socks, and keep the money. And this is distinct in many cases from Marxist-Leninists, who are, you want to think of it like they're very output oriented. So profit needs to be collectivized, whereas other communists, the Kronstadt anarchists, were very labor oriented. Labor must be individualized. And this creates a tension between the two groups. The other problem, other than the obvious, for the Marxist-Leninists with being able to sell and profit from your own wares, is that if you're not profiting off of anyone else's labor, either someone else, like the state, is profiting off your labor, or the capitalist landlord is profiting off your labor, or you're self-employed. And if you're self-employed, you know what you don't need? You don't need a union if you're self-employed. And a Soviet is a workers' council that interfaces with the unions. If you destroy the need for unions, you've destroyed the entire Soviet model, and the revolution is dead on arrival. So there cannot be self-employment in this glorious new republic. So the resolution that the Petrograd anarchists draw up and approve gets sent to Lenin and Trotsky, who basically say LMAO no. I want to note also there are, at the time, Bolsheviks at Kronstadt. Again, they do have a Soviet, so there have to be some Bolsheviks at Kronstadt. There is a significant anarchist libertarian contingent, obviously, but there are a lot of otherwise ideologically inclined folks there. The resolution is adopted. The Bolsheviks are obviously unhappy. Think of like Andrew Chatterton and Austin Martin at a typical LNC meeting. That's basically what the Bolsheviks do at this meeting where the resolution is adopted. So the council can't appoint a new Soviet immediately at the same meeting because they stir up too much shit. So they just appoint a provisional revolutionary council that's going to take the work of administrative bullshit and administrative stuff until things cool down between the Bolsheviks and the anarchists. Again, they're very convinced, everyone is very convinced, that there can be some solution found here, right? They've been friends partly because of their military relationship. Nobody wants to lose that. So again, they have the Provisional Revolutionary Committee. There's going to be this temporary group of folks that do the administrative stuff. Wait for this to blow over. I like to call it the Provisional, well, that escalated quickly committee because it did. What ends up happening is that they develop their own revolutionary press. It's called the Kronstadt Izvestia. And you can actually find the full reprint of translated into English of all the issues of the Kronstadt Izvestia between March 1st and March 18th of 1921. It's really fantastic. I recommend reading it. It will take you some time. It's a little bit heavy at points. But the other funny thing is that, and I said this on the last stream, the last year's stream too, I have not seen such vehement anti-communist rhetoric from any right-winger as I have from the Kronstadt Izvestia. And again, these were folks that were calling themselves communists. And it escalates so quickly. Again, on March 1st, it's like, we're comrades in arms. We're going to get through this. We don't hate the communists. We don't hate the Bolsheviks. At that time, they're still calling them the Bolsheviks. We don't hate the Bolsheviks. We have differences. By March 4th, they completely have isolated and alienated the communists. And they're talking about how they're enemies of labor, enemies of the working man, down with the communists, victory or death, all of this. And again, escalates very quickly. Now, they did end up seceding. Kronstadt did secede from Russia, so that might have been a bit of what you might call a provocation. Leon Trotsky is not happy. Daddy's angry. Daddy's very angry. And I say daddy because he was very friendly with the Kronstadt anarchists. He had defended them before I think even before the 1905 revolution and during the Great October Revolution. He had called them the pride and glory of the Russian Revolution, but he's not happy right now. And so Trotsky has what I have and will continue to call his frustrated dad moment. This genuinely happens. He writes this screed to the anarchists. He's very mad. And he's you're insurgents, you're terrible, I hate you, why don't you go die? And if don't make me make someone come over there, because that's the other thing. Trotsky never actually comes over there. Okay, he always, at all times and all places, makes someone else go over there. In the Kronstadt press, they call him a field marshal. That's giving him way too much credit. My guy is a field marshal without a field. He does not fight. He makes people go over there for him, which he will do in this case, as we'll get to. He says, you have 2 days to knock this shit off. And he says, there will not be another warning. 2 days come, 2 days go. No shit gets knocked off. None. Trotsky is not happy. 2 more days. Okay, two more. But then that's it. Then I'm turning this car around before we get to Disneyland. He genuinely does. He gives them 2 last warnings. So the first one, he writes, again, there will not be another warning. The second one he writes, this warning is the last. So again, Trotsky usually comes off as this very decisive figure. This time he's just completely, I will call your mother. I'm going to count down from 10.
I would argue he's doing the "I'll call your father" thing.
That's true.
I think he is the mother here.
He might be. But
will it make us look too stupid if I post from Marxist.org, because that's the place that I found the Kronstadt Bestia?
That is where you find it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, everybody, I'm sorry that I'm giving you a Marxist.org thing.
Well, wait, is it the crime
go
thing?
ahead.
Because there are 2. There's the View from Inside the Revolt, which is Marxism.org, or Marxist.org, and then there's the Crime Think. I can actually post it for you. I can give it to you, and then you.
I've got the Crime Think open.
Okay, then do that one, because
Post
that's the full issue, or the full series of issues. So rather than calling your dad or your mom,
I have an errand is telling me to reload, so I'll be right back.
Who Trotsky does call is a man named Tukhachevsky. He is a Red Army general, and he is the one who's going to be calling the shots on the ground, because some people don't want to get their leather jackets dirty. So where did Kyle go? Kyle just joined the stream again. Kyle, what did you do?
That I had to refresh the page because something went wrong.
Gotcha.
It popped up and told me that I had to refresh to see anything.
Okay, fair. So Tukhachevsky is the military commander that Trotsky is relying on to put down this insurgency at Kronstadt. Kronstadt, again, is a military base. Tukhachevsky doesn't actually want to go in to a fortified military base, especially not with the Red Army being what it is, which is incredibly disorganized and rebellious and made up mostly of people without a ton of military training, unless you count the White Army generals that they made Red Army generals, because you got to have the institution of the capitalist. Sorry, Kyle, what?
It's a shipyard, right? So these are freaking, they have battleships there.
They do.
So you're talking about... like it's World War I era battleships.
Yes, yeah.
But you're talking about the most powerful armor known to mankind at the time.
Yes.
With the most powerful weapons known to mankind, and a bunch of pissed off anarchists while you're marching in to tell them they don't get to have their anarchy anymore.
And again,
it is a suicide mission.
Yes, and the anarchists, again, the anarchists do have the military experience. The anarchists, and I've actually looked at the, because I've written like academic papers on this. I've looked at the, there were theses involved in the making of the papers. I've looked at the records of the names, and most of these soldiers who were fighting, the anarchists who were fighting at Kronstadt, were the same anarchists who helped fight for the Bolsheviks during the Russian Civil War. It's not turnover. It's not like, oh, we suddenly got new people. And that was one of the claims that Trotsky was making as well. So like, these are new people. They're not the same anarchists. They're like weird, crazy leftists. And again, that the Bolsheviks were self-professedly further right than the anarchists. Lenin even wrote a book called a pamphlet called Leftism, an Infantile Disorder. Because again, back then, and still today, if we're to do it correctly, leftism meant pro-decentralization. Rightism was more totalitarian, more centralization. And the Bolsheviks were very confident in expressing the fact that they needed authoritarianism. Authoritarian is not a dirty word, right? For the Bolsheviks. So they're authoritarian, they're totalitarian, they're on the right. They are on the right, especially compared with the anarchists. But the anarchists are the ones with the military experience, and the Red Army is incredibly fractured and fragmented. And also, it's mid-March. So the ice that has created that nice little land bridge that keeps you from needing to take a ship to Kronstadt and being literally dead in the water when you do it, that land bridge is melting. And when that land bridge melts, not only is it going to be much harder to get to Kronstadt from the mainland and in the Red Army, it's going to be much easier for weapons, supplies, food to get to Kronstadt from the west. And there was real concern that not necessarily that the anarchists were working directly with White Army generals, although there were White Army generals that did try to give advice to the Kronstadt anarchists. Of course, they all maintained that they did not take it. They refused to work with the White Army at all. But there were definitely people in the West who were rooting for the Bolsheviks to fail and were perfectly happy, just as the Bolsheviks would be perfectly happy with any force, like the anarchists who helped them take down the capitalists. There are capitalists who are very, very happy to have any force, including the anarchists, help the Bolsheviks fail, right?
So we've got a question here, and it's one that's actually really important, and this is an excellent time to talk about it.
Okay.
Dave has asked, yep, so communism is a right-wing ideology. Literally,
no.
State communism?
State communism.
Yes.
Not all
Bolshevism?
communism. Bolshevism, yes. Anarcho-communism, no. So we need to... Go on.
In this particular case, the anarchists are anarcho-communist.
Yes.
Not completely. Like they have some things they have capital in some ways. Is my
they do, but they wouldn't call it capital. Like for their self-understanding, they just believe in independent labor.
I'm trying to explain it to the audience rather than
the audience is smart. Go on.
I know, but this is about defining terms, right?
Okay, I understand.
And so these anarcho-communists, camera, do your things. Anarcho-communists are the left. They are exactly like when we're talking about these Kronstadt anarchists, they're anarcho-communists. When we talk about the Paris Commune, anarcho-communists,
I don't know if all of them would have called themselves communists, but some definitely call themselves libertarians, although you can be a libertarian communist. We need to, so we're taking out the economic dimension because the economic dimension is an invention. Like it's a fabrication of entities like Marxist-Leninists who wanted to be the state, but also wanted to stay left-wing. And so they kind of create this notion of, and it's not as direct as all this, but they create this notion of, well, there's an economic dimension. And so if you're economically for something that could potentially lead to hierarchy, or rather people having more and less, then that makes you on the right. And then if you are not for anyone having more and less because the state owns everything, then you're on the left. That's bullshit. We don't do Bolshevik bullshit here. Okay, so we go back to what left and right actually were, which granted was kind of arbitrary because the designations did have to do with where people sat in French Parliament. But the people on the left were the people who were anti-monarchy and pro-liberty. And the people on the right were the people who were pro-hierarchy, pro-monarchism. And so at this time, Lenin, Trotsky, the Bolsheviks, they are very much saying that they would tell you that the anarchists are still on the left. They're to the left of them. And because of this, they're stupid and childish and naive. So that is a very good question.
If you listen to reactionaries now, conservative righties now, you'll hear a lot of the exact same rhetoric as from the Bolsheviks.
Yes.
And like when you listen to Donald Trump, like I can't listen to a single one of Trump's speeches at this point and not think, man, he loves Joseph Stalin.
Stalin would love him. Stalin would adore him, and he would adore Stalin. I mean, let's be real. But this is part of why, by the way, we advertise this as the story that no statist wants you to know, because both the totalitarian progressives and totalitarian conservatives really hate the story of Kronstadt, because the totalitarian progressives know it makes them look like assholes. And the totalitarian conservatives don't want to make the anarchists the heroes. They don't want to make anyone who would claim to be a communist, which again, as we're seeing, meant something very different than a Marxist-Leninist for these anarchists. They don't want to make them the heroes either. So yeah, that's where we are with the ideological lines. We're just thinking about it in terms of pro-decentralization, you're on the left, pro-centralization, you're on the right. The Bolsheviks are on the right, the anarchists are on the left. Again, the ISIS...
If you're a moderate, no one wants you.
The ice is melting. That's still true. The ice is melting, so time is of the essence. At the same time, Tukhachevsky does not want to raid on this military commune. That's a suicide mission. So what he starts off with doing are like pinprick attacks, right? We have the Red Army stationed around the ice. The desire seems to be to starve them out. So it becomes a race between, will the anarchists starve first or will the ice melt first? And spoiler alert, the ice loses. So the Red Army, for
ice
several
is not
days.
known for its speed.
No. Well, the ice loses. Yeah. So ice takes a while to melt, and the anarchists have enough provisions. They develop this voucher system, basically. Like, they're definitely rationing, but they have a voucher system whereby
You can actually see it in the news articles.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's like, kids get 1 pound of butter, or not 1 pound, but like children and the infirm would get butter.
A full pound of butter a day, just cramming it down the children. All the anarchists are huge.
Well, no, it wasn't a day. It wasn't a day, because it was by week. And they would actually tell you when you could come in and use. And there's actually a really sweet moment where I think somebody misplaces their voucher, and so they put in the paper whose name was on the voucher, where you could have just used it to get more food, but instead they publish in the paper, no, that somebody dropped their voucher and we have it, so let us know if it's yours. It's really sweet. But yeah, so they try to do smart things to make the food last longer. Meanwhile, the Red Army shoots at them. The anarchists return fire. This happens a couple times a day. There are no huge casualties. Occasionally there would be prefects at various bases on the Red Army side that would just randomly decide to shoot people. And then you would get the massive casualties. There were even air raids. So the Red Army would fly over and try to drop bombs. But again, it's World War I era technology. And also, I cannot emphasize enough how militarily inept the Red Army is at this point. So I don't think we have any death records of the bombs. If we do, I think the bombs might have killed 1 or 2 people. I know there was one injury.
As an aside, as an aerospace engineer telling you about planes in World War I, there is no bomb bay in these aircraft. Yeah. This is literally like you're flying over and Ivan, the pilot, has a grenade in his hand where he's pulling the pin and throwing it down on the ground and hoping someone dies.
Yeah.
This is not like what we think of as bombing.
Meanwhile,
there's no B-52 flying over and.
Meanwhile, the anarchists have anti-aircraft artillery, so they're doing pretty well in comparison with these bombers. In the meantime, tension and consequently arrests start ratcheting up in Petrograd. Again, word's gotten out about this uprising, but again, the Bolsheviks have a very, very tight grip on the press. So they can try and propagandize. Again, the propaganda they're going with is the anarchists want czars. So it's not great. They're not sending their best. And by not sending their best, I mean they're sending Leon Trotsky to do propaganda. And what he settles on is these monsters want czarism. These leftist anarcho monsters want Nikolai back. That's what he goes with. So
Nikolai the Third.
They want Nikolai the Third. Meanwhile, that everyone else is talking about a third revolution, right? So there's genuine talk about how this might happen, particularly because the natives in Petrograd are so freaking restless. But it's very hard to get word out past Petrograd because we don't have social media, right? We only have word of mouth and things travel very slowly. Cheka, secret police are everywhere. If you're talking about something, they're gonna know. And meanwhile, the Bolsheviks have Pravda, truth. They have the Red Gazette, right? So they are really trying to make sure that word of this does not get out. They also start trying to arrest the families of the sailors. They do arrest the families of the sailors as hostages. They arrest townspeople in Petrograd. And at the same time, there are Red Army defections coming in to Kronstadt. So there are members of the Red Army who are like, I'm done. I don't want to be part of this anymore. They're members of the Communist Party, the Bolsheviks. They're ex-Bolsheviks who are coming in and saying, I'm turning in my card. Literally, I'm turning in my card, to the point where the Kronstadt news publishes all these lists of defections, and they publish letters. Some of these clearly are heightened propaganda, but they publish letters from defectors who start telling stories about how they were coercively conscripted into either the Red Army or made to join the Communist Party, sometimes both. Within a period of a few days, you had 200 to 300 defections being printed in the Kronstadt Izvestia. There are prefects of various forts that are saying they're no longer fighting with the Red Army. Again, we have stories of coercive conscription that are published in the Izvestia. You should really take a look at it. Some of it's jarring. And it's very good propaganda for the anarchists. However, it is terrifying for the Bolsheviks because, again, you've got weak Russia, you've got people who are rioting in the main industrial eras. So during a famine, now you've already got output that's scarce, and now people are rioting and refusing to work in one of your main industrial holds. That's not good for the economy that you're trying so desperately to pretend exists. You have a military base that wants to be anarchic. You can't have an anarchic military base, probably, says Leon Trotsky at some point. You have the workers' opposition within the party itself that doesn't want the unions to be a part of the party. You have defections in the Red Army. The ice is melting, by the way, still it's melting. And then to top it all off, there's this new Republican administration in the United States that looks like it might be willing to parlay with the Soviet government, which would be great because the Soviet government has nothing. And there's this new government, this new capitalist government that actually has things and has resources in the United States. And they could be willing to negotiate something with the Soviet government if the Soviet government can look competent. And right now it doesn't really look competent. And if the anarchists win, they certainly won't look competent. It's a bad day. It's a bad series of days for Leon Trotsky and Vladimir Lenin. And you almost can't blame them for being a little bit on edge. Again, one thing that they have that the anarchists don't is the power of the press. So they've got a desperate fear of losing their power, and that was becoming rapidly realized. This third revolution is a real possibility, all because of this dumb military base that is more militarily adept. And it's coming back to bite them that they ever aligned with them, but that's how it goes. In the middle of all this, because again, this siege is not being put down. And Trotsky keeps insisting, it's going to be put down, guys. It's going to be any day. Just like that job that McArdle's going to get in Trump's administration. It's coming any day. The siege is going to be put down. Trump's going to call. He's going to give her a job. Trotsky's going to be able to keep his job. It's going to be fine. This reporter for the London Herald calls up Trotsky and says, I can't help but notice that there's a siege at Kronstadt. And you keep saying it's going to end, but it doesn't seem to be ending. What's up with that? And Trotsky, again, in a just wonderful star-studded moment for him, goes, well, it's the children. We're really concerned about the welfare of the children on the island. And it's a few bad apples, really, for the most part. And we're trying to protect the women and the children and not hurt them. And so it's a very, very, very careful operation that we're dealing with. So we want to have as few casualties as possible, says Leon Trotsky, sweating profusely, progressively turning into more and more of a tomato with his face that's just getting redder and more swollen because he's at the status well by this point. He's got the tomato face. So again, great moment from Leon Trotsky, insisting that the Bolsheviks are trying to protect the children because, as we all know, the Bolsheviks really care about protecting children. So they are, yes, dropping bombs routinely. Finally, there is a first real volley, if you will, at the base. Once it becomes clear that the Red Army is not going to achieve what they want to achieve in the time that they want, if they just continue camping out on the ice. So Tukhachevsky has the men charge. The weather's terrible. The army is very visible with their uniforms. And on that first volley, it's a slaughter for the Red Army. absolute slaughter. And remember, when I say slaughter, I'm talking about this is World War I era. This is the ice is being blown out from under people. They are drowning in the water. It's a bloodbath. It is a literal bloodbath. There's artillery, again, blowing ice out from underneath them. This is a fortified military base with experienced soldiers and experienced sailors. So the first volley, the Red Army is soundly defeated. They did not have enough people. It's almost 10,000, I think, that are defeated. It's one day. I don't even know.
There were 15,000 total in Kronstadt.
Yes.
So them killing 10,000, it's a pretty good KD.
Yeah. Meanwhile, where is Trotsky, you might ask, after talking with this reporter at the London Herald? Well, he's doing all right. He's in Moscow. He's at the 10th Party Congress, which is like their national convention. And Trotsky gets word of what's happening. He delivers this rousing exhortation to the delegates to enlist and fight at Kronstadt. Is Trotsky going to? No, Trotsky's got other things to do, but you should definitely go and fight. He gives such a good speech. Again, this is a mainly illiterate country. It's easy to impress the delegates at that Congress. He gives a great speech, and 300 delegates enlist. 15 die fighting. Trotsky doesn't set foot on the island. Again, he's got more important things, I'm sure, to do. He's got theses to write, guys. The second volley, however, is much more devastating for the anarchists, obviously, because the Bolsheviks won. The Red Army surrounds the commune on all sides during the night. Now, it's also important to note that there was discussion all throughout this among the anarchists about whether to take the mainland, right? About whether to actually go on the offensive. And that would have certainly raised morale in Petrograd. It would have absolutely made the resistance visible throughout the country. And the verdict was, no, we want to limit casualties. We don't want to be aggressive. That was a fatal, truly fatal miscalculation. They did not take the mainland, and they could have. They had the weaponry, they had superior military, and they had the will to victory, as Trotsky himself would put it, among the people and among people who would have gladly fought with them if they'd known what was going on. There were tons of uprisings all around the country. They just weren't coordinated because, again, the Bolsheviks had the stranglehold on the press. The Red Army surrounds the commune.
Is why the media matters so much, and why messaging matters so much, and why not having constant press releases and things is absolutely the death of any movement.
The state's the enemy. We don't have literal, I mean, I'm sure we do have some Bolsheviks, but it might not seem like we have a government comprised of literal self-identified Bolsheviks that are, we have ostensible freedom of the press here. They can certainly vet and filter what gets into the mainstream much less easily than they could back then, obviously. And indeed, we talked about the Solidarity movement not too long ago. The reason Solidarity was able to prevail and the USSR fell was the fact that they were able to get the attention of the Western press. And they did that very craftily. They would organize demonstrations when they knew that the Western press would be paying attention during sports ceremonies and the USSR version of Eurovision or whatever, that kind of thing. But yes, so we're on night 2, everyone, and this time, because they realized that they stood out too much when their uniforms were too conspicuous, the Red Army, guys, wants to blend into the snow, so they wear white. They literally became the White Army. That's what happened. So they wear white. They use a smoke screen. They use smoke screen technology. Trotsky even authorizes the use of chemical weapons. He authorizes gassing the people of Kronstadt. It's about the children, everyone. It's about the dogs and the children. We just want to make sure the dogs and the children are safe. Gas them, please. You can just gas them. He authorizes all this. But the anarchists...
So
go on while I collect myself.
Obviously, like with Geneva Convention and everything else, we've seen the idea that gas should be illegal. And, statists are very fond of pointing that out as why gas warfare went away. They're wrong. They're 100% full of shit. Gas warfare went away because we stopped doing entrenched positions. Kronstadt is a base. It's a fortification where you can drop gas in it and you can guarantee they're going to die. We don't do those anymore. The whole idea is that like you keep your bases way far out and then you use cavalry to get into the fight. And so gas is useless when it's just as likely to kill you on the battlefield as the other guy. You can't fly over and drop gas on them. That's why we don't see gassing anymore. This fortification, the thing that makes the Kronstadt anarchists so powerful here, is also something that makes them very vulnerable to the most powerful technology at the time.
Kyle, it's almost like they had a free state project where they had all the anarchists in the vicinity just concentrating like sitting ducks for the state to come in and do whatever they want. It's almost like building a place where
right.
Anarchists and libertarians can just all live together as one. Might backfire.
I don't know, Amanda. You have to put all the atoms together to make molecules.
The anarchists remain convinced that something can be worked out as they are. The dissonance, everyone, is profound. As they're printing victory or death, like, all power to the people and not parties, all power to the people of labor. Yeah, the communists, as they're calling the Bolsheviks communists now, they've forfeited the label, are scum and terrible and enemies of labor and state capitalists and all this nonsense, but they still, when it comes to the heat of battle, want to reconcile. There comes a point on night 2 during this slaughter that one group, the Red Army, because again, Tukhachevsky has them breach the gates at multiple points of entry. The anarchists catch a group of Red Army soldiers, White Army soldiers, scaling the walls. They could fire at them and say instead, "Can we talk? Can we talk, guys? Can we look? I know it's been a really weird few days. Could we have a conversation during a battle? This is not, nobody's called like a ceasefire, none of this. These people are scaling a wall. It is the easiest time to shoot them down, and instead the anarchists are like, hey, could we, friends? No? They're too nice, guys. I don't know. Anarchists are too nice. This is their flaw. They didn't take the mainland. These were things that were within their power. They didn't take the mainland, and they asked to parlay when they were being actively invaded. Too nice. So, yes, the Bolsheviks do finally defeat these fortified anarchists, because now the fortification has become a hindrance. Defeat these fortified anarchists at Kronstadt. Again, the night is still very bloody for the Bolsheviks. I want to emphasize that this is World War I scale death. In a matter of a couple of days, there are at least 10,000 Bolsheviks are killed on day one, and the Bolsheviks won. So it says my connection is lost. I don't know whether it actually is.
Your connection is rough, but you are
okay.
Still
I don't know whether to sign out or not.
Your audio's been pretty, but your video is
I've been
choppy.
like Kung Fu Theater. Okay. Text me if, because now you're freezing for me. Text me if I completely fade out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're choppy for me now. I will have my texts on. So there's a bloodbath on multiple sides. The Finns have to beg the Bolsheviks to vacate the bodies, the dead bodies that are floating in the Gulf of Finland because of contamination concerns. That's the scale of carnage we're talking about. Finland's like, guys, could you please clean up your dead? Could you get a skimmer or something, please? The day
really
after,
big pool net.
yeah, the day after, again, because it's the anniversary of the Paris Commune, it's a holiday. The Bolsheviks marched through the streets singing the Internationale, which is the anarchist anthem. It is the International Workers' Anthem. It was written or used primarily first by the anarchists. It's the anthem of the Paris Commune. It belonged to the anarchists, and the Bolsheviks stole it because that's what they do. The lyrical irony also cannot be neglected here. The lyrics of the Internationale are all about all the things that the anarchists petitioned for, and all the things that are called out in the lyrics of the Internationale are also the things that the anarchists were calling out incidentally. I am tethering, Kyle, that's the problem. Incidentally, wait a second. What if I do this? What if I turn off my...
And she's gone. Hey, everybody. So Amanda's gonna be back in a second. This is a super important thing. Like, this is not a solidarity stream because, you know, our goal is to not have all of us die. That'd be great. This is this day in Liberty history because the Kronstadt anarchists are basically a branch of libertarianism. And it's something that we talk about pretty frequently, that we have to stand together in solidarity, and we do have to play by rules and things. But when people are looking to destroy us, we don't have to play with them. It's very important for us to stand against people who are awful. When we have people who go to conventions and they steal a convention by going up and taking a microphone, and people are afraid to stand and fight them because it might be a violation of the NAP, that person just stole an affiliate from an entire group of people. When we worry about individuals who are attacking our entire nation, and we're like, well, we can't do anything against them, that's a problem. That's why we've so often talked about the importance of strengthening the non-aggression pledge. Why we have to say that we're standing together in solidarity against tyranny, no matter where that tyranny is. If I could juggle, I would start juggling for you guys. I'm getting some message from Amanda, but just taking some time here, so I'm a little worried. Hi, everybody. But it's a lesson that we all have to learn from Kronstadt. It's a lesson we have to learn from the Paris Commune. It's a lesson we consistently see from anarchist groups, where anarchist groups come together, they do an incredible job, and then when the anarchist group comes under pressure, they don't brutalize those who are trying to kill them, and then they're killed. This is something that we see with... I don't hear you yet, Amanda. I see you, but don't hear you. I heard the bloop of you coming in. You're on the screen. You are on the screen. I see you on the screen. Your net's dying. I can try to put you backstage and put you back up. Let's see. Right. Amanda's backstage. Amanda's back on. Amanda is staring angrily into the camera because she has no other choice because she's frozen. This one's fun. But anarchic societies have worked. The Paris Commune worked. It was attacked. The Makhnovshina worked. They didn't believe the Red Army would betray them, so the Red Army killed them. Kronstadt worked. And then they were killed because they weren't willing to stand together and fight because they believed that if they were just nice enough to people, that those people would be nice back. You can't just let someone walk up and stab you. You can't let them walk up and stab your neighbor. You have to stand up and fight. And so that's what we are all working on. Hopefully that makes sense for those who are still here and everything else. Oh, Amanda's here. Hopefully that means Amanda's back. I cannot hear you. I see you, but I don't hear you. Hold, please, for technical difficulties. Y'all can see me, right? I'm not crazy here? Says we're live. Rose, get on the screen while Amanda's gone. We need second Amanda. Second Amanda. But for realsies, Amanda will be back in a minute. Don't run. We'll be good. As Rose points out, an alliance with authoritarians who hate us will surely work this time, which it won't, as she knows and we all know. This is an important thing for everyone here to understand. We fight. Rob is over an hour late to the party. Rob, Amanda was taken by Leon Trotsky and sent to Gulag. So, we will be contacting Phil and raiding the Gulag at dawn to break Amanda out so that she can be free. That's how this is going to work.
Let's see if this works. Okay.
Ha!
Aha. Okay. Hi, guys. I don't know. I'll ask. We're back. I restarted. Fortunately, we were close to wrapping up. I don't know, Kyle. I don't know if you're frozen, Kyle, or if you're just expressionless. Okay. Make faces, but I know that you're not freezing for me. So yes, we were close to wrapping up a few years after all of this goes down, because the surviving anarchists had fled to Finland, which is, again, very close to
where'd the anarchists go, Amanda?
Yes, that is where the anarchists go. They flee to Finland. Several years later, the Bolsheviks petitioned the Finns to have the anarchists repatriated. And they super, super pinky promise that they won't do anything to the anarchists once they get back. And they're like, it's water under the ice bridge. I promise we're not going to do anything. The Finns, because they don't have experience dealing with the way Bolsheviks are, decide to repatriate them, whereupon these surviving anarchists are, some of them are executed immediately, and others are sentenced to forced labor in the gulags, where the anarchists, the rest of them, die. So that's the story of Kronstadt. It is pretty much universally recognized as a blight on Soviet history. To this day, by the way, when I see certain anarchists talking about Kronstadt, they are so quick to want to go back to, to unity with the state communists. Not all of them, but many. Having bought into this narrative about the economic dimension and no war but class war, which of course necessitates class. And of course, the state communists are all too happy to permit that sort of thing. So anarchists are too nice. Guys, when you start charging them, they will just ask to talk. The state was the absolute aggressor, still is the absolute aggressor, and still the Kronstadt anarchists, these militarily fortified superior anarchists, did not do what needed to be done. And this is what is so, I think, frustrating for me, is this could have ended very differently. The history of leftism could have gone very differently. We could have had decades of not having workers be oppressed under red fascism in the Soviet Union. This was entirely possible. And the downstream effects, I don't know if they were miscalculated or just not considered. The Bolsheviks were allowed to win. They didn't take the mainland. They didn't do all they could. And this is, again, I'm very much not on the side of the Bolsheviks here. I understand being able to put myself in certain shoes with certain intentions, why they, in their mind, had to absolutely do all that they did. And if I had had the same intentions as they did, I would too, because the threat was just too severe. But the severity of the threat is proof of the fact that this could have gone so differently. And that is, I think, I don't know, Kyle, how you entertained the people while I was out trying to fix my internet, but I don't know if you had concluding thoughts on this.
I pointed out while you were gone that this is exactly why, when we speak out against the people who are giving another chance, who are saying, well, maybe it won't be so bad this time, when we have people who take an entire convention over because no one will stand up and punch someone in the face, that's the problem. And that we consistently see this with anarchy. We saw this in the Paris Commune. We saw this in the Makhnovshchina. We watch this over and over, where there are anarchic societies that are doing great things, and the anarchists are like, surely they'll notice how great things are here and stop being fucking devils. And they don't. The state is too busy being the state. So we must stand in solidarity and fight sadists. That's not to say that our minarchist brothers are people to cast away, but it is to say that, we must be very careful in any power given to the state and always be ready to take it from them.
So that is the story of Kronstadt. I want to read something, but it's too long from the one of those editions of the Kronstadt Izvestia, but I highly recommend that people do read that. Just bookmark it. There's also Avrich's Kronstadt 1921. It's this right here. Berkman's The Bolshevik Myth, also details what happened at Kronstadt and is a wonderful read. I would call it it's a pretty quick read, but it's difficult. And now, as we opened, I think we can, random plugs, yes. Tomorrow night we are doing a stream for Izzy, who is currently facing deportation, a Florida libertarian who's facing deportation. And we're going to be speaking with Izzy's lawyer, as well as Mark. Do support our initiative to get 100 Povertarians to Grand Rapids. By scanning that QR code, all profits will go to that initiative. Join us on Discord, discord.gg/LP-Alliance, and follow us on X at LP_allies. Do like and share this. It does help with the algorithm, that statist algorithm. Don't let the statist win. All right. And now as we played you in, we will play you out with At the Base of the Baltic Fleet, which is one of the many hit singles you can find on the wildly commercially unsuccessful parody album, Agitpop Inoffensive Marxism, a parody album about the Russian Revolution. Find that on agitpopinternational.substack.com. And we will see you tomorrow night, guys. Thank you. See you last.
The base of the Baltic Fleet would entreat the elite with demands that we can't meet without a mutiny. And their ships are lacking heat, bread to eat in the street. They've got factions who'd compete with party unity.
Strikers here in Petrograd, getting mad, worst we've had. Say the leadership's gone bad, too centralized. Said we shoved it down their throats.
Here's a note that they wrote. They want secret ballot votes, free enterprise.
Freedom of speech and the press, nothing less.
Read the rest.
Say the workers feel oppressed, want to lead locally.
You know with freedom of speech, they'll impeach, overreach. There's a lesson we should teach these bastards vocally.
Zinoviev can't tell him shit, won't help a bit.
To hell with it.
Arrested the delegates we sent to the city. We'll arrest them in return, we'll stand firm, make them learn. Cut short the Soviets' term with our own committee.
What a bunch of pasty teens wanna be self-governing, seize their own productive means but anonymously. If this were any other place, I'd show grace and give them space. You can't run a naval base autonomously.
They say we're crypto-bourgeois whites trying to ignite mainline fights. As for terms like workers' rights, they won't even discuss.
Tell them if they wanna live, cut short this offensive. Something's gonna have to give, it's not gonna be us.
Bolshevik numbers are low, didn't know where we go. We're liberating all the Soviet bodies on the ice.
Rebels could have struck before if they poured on our shore. They might have resisted more and let us start to rise.
50,000 to 15 bombs clean the smoke screen. Houses is a buy unseen and without gas. Now that we not attack, should instead have it back. Now that the next is back, take them en masse.
Preach to get a bullets rain, those who strain very vain. Once we had the upper speed, we did what must be done.
We're going to get out ahead, bodies dead, we fled, over to resistance, and that's all slide head on. a Freude, Freude, Brave, Spaveit, ihr Gott, die Güte Stella, a Cargilienzo, Gloria, Stadt. Nicht vergiss, was das Leben, ihr steht,
All right, everyone, now sing it in your own language.
No, sing it in Russian. What the hell? It's your own language. What the hell, man? Sing it in Russian.
Like stream, crying